Hi everyone, I'm the Plant Propagator and welcome to my channel. Today it's my last day here in the Midwest before I return to Southwest Florida, and it's a good thing. It's getting a little cool here. We had frost for the past few days. Today's a little bit of a warmer day, but it's the fall is coming. You may be able to see behind me some of the, I think over here, some of the leaves on the maple trees are turning. So it's autumn. It's getting a little cool. My garden here in the Midwest is shutting down, and I'm very anxious to get back to Southwest Florida. I think I'm going to do a video of the cleanup, or just to kind of show you the state of things. I've had some neighbors and orchid growing colleagues that have been to my house, and they say that there's a few orchids down in my bougainvillea that was shading a lot of the orchids. My understanding is that is completely off the shed where it was sitting before, so everything that was in there, it's going to be a mess. Anyway, I'll share all of that with you. I also know that some stuff is blooming, which is nice. Anyway, we'll get to that. But what I wanted to do today, my last half day in the Midwest, is just share with you some of my special plants or some unusual things that are going on with my plants. And right now I'm in front of, and this is a little bit of a surprise for me, but this is a climbing rose, and I've got this under my pergola here. And this rose as well, so for a while, because I'm into fragrance gardening, I was trying to grow a lot of roses. And even though I'm a plant scientist, I was a little bit naive of how to do this. So when I first started growing my roses, they did great. And as I got more of them, then all of the pathogens moved in. And it's a combination of fungal pathogens and insect pests and things like that. So what happens on the roses here is there's a lot of both, and it ended up that it just required a lot of care, and I couldn't do it. And some of the plants that I had required some the care that I couldn't quite provide. So as a result, I kind of let the roses, I selected the most resistant of those roses, and I have some of those around. And that's what this one is here. Most of the roses that I grew or that I selected, I did so because of fragrance. So this is a really nice fragrant climbing rose. This does have, when I got back here, there were very few leaves on this plant, and there's a caterpillar, there's a larva that eats, that was eating a lot of the leaves on this, as well as my other roses that are still around. And I found the best control for that is just to go out here and pick them off. So there's been a flush of growth, and I've got some nice flowers that have formed on this plant, and I got to leave this behind. It gets black spot, but most roses do, and it has some other issues. My plan was to grow these roses so that they would climb throughout the top of the pergola and cover it. That never happened. I don't think it ever will. They are cold tolerant, but again, the pathogens, the insect and the fungal pests just kind of take over these plants, and especially when I'm not here, and it requires a little bit too much care. So this is one of my remaining roses, and this is one of those that's probably doing the best of all of them. They all bloom, but these should be large plants, and they're just not. One of the issues here is that it is a little bit more shaded in this area because of the trees that I have in the backyard, and because of that, these roses don't do as well. All right, one of the other plants that I want to share with you is right over there, and this is a dawn redwood tree, and this is it's an old tree. I actually dug this out of the ground at the house that I used to live at that was a few miles from here, and moved it here when it was pretty small, and it has since grown quite a bit. It is a redwood. It's a prehistoric tree that at one point it was thought to be just gone from the planet Earth, but there was it was found again, and seeds were recovered from those, and now there's dawn redwoods all over the place. My city here and my old university has an arboretum, and they grow these things and they produce lots of cones with seeds, so you see a lot of dawn redwoods in the city that I'm in, and my tree actually produces cones and seeds, and occasionally I see seedlings coming up, but I don't have any space here. These things, as you can tell, get pretty big. But it's a great tree. My neighbors like it, probably because it screens our house from their house. But this is we'll take a closer look at it, and I can show you the base of the tree. It's really nice. It's kind of gnarled looking. If you cut the larger branches off of it, you have the redwood smell that's associated with this. The Japanese beetles that love my roses also love to eat my dawn redwood, but it's such a big tree. It does damage, but it always grows back. So that's another one of my special trees, or special plants around here. What I want to do is get behind the camera and show you a few things that are, I think, a little bit unusual, and hope you enjoy it. Okay, so let me get behind the camera and show you some interesting things. Okay, and we're back. So these are my roses right here. This is the rose that I was standing next to just a second ago. And you know, like I said, this thing is loaded. It's got a lot of blooms coming out on it. So it's doing pretty well. But there are some issues, and anyway, so let's give you another look at this a little bit closer. You know, I do like the color, and the fragrance also is very nice. Okay, let's move on, and I want to show you this. And this is not, I guess, that unusual, but it is unusual because of the time of year that it is. So this is an iris, and for some reason, you know, these things are late spring bloomers, and they're also really susceptible to a borer. So there's a iris borer that gets down in there and just destroys the bulbs of the plant. But these things have done really well. It doesn't kill the plant for the most part, but it just causes a lot of damage. Anyway, these things aren't normally blooming this time of year, and I was surprised to see blooms on this plant coming out a couple of days ago. This is open today for the first time, and there's a few more blooms behind it. You can see the plant itself doesn't look very good at all, but it's blooming, which is unusual. You know, some plants will do this. So you see a lot of this with crab apples that are spring blooming. Sometimes in the fall, if the conditions are right, you'll see some additional blooms. But this is a hybrid that my friend Kevin, who is an iris breeder, gave to me a few years ago. He gave me a bunch of them, and I have them spread through, you know, really all over the place. So these are all irises. The thing is, they're late spring bloomers, and after that time, this is pretty much what you get, which is the case with you know, with many flowers. So you just have the, you know, whatever is left over. But it was nice to see a little bit of color coming out in this time of the year, because it's a little bit unusual. So I'm happy that I got roses and I have an iris blooming. Okay, moving on a little bit, I want to show you some of the other, I guess, a little bit unusual plants that are blooming. So this isn't really unusual, but this is a butterfly bush, and I have a lot of these, and I've been trimming them up a lot because they tend to get tall and they tend to get out of hand. I should say, when I was in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, they had these all over the place. These were growing wild. They were growing everywhere, you know, up on roofs and gutters, everything like that. And so the seeds that these guys produce, they're in the old flowers. I don't know if you can see them in there, but they get everywhere. The birds like them, so I don't like to cut them off, but we have volunteers around my house coming up everywhere. So it is a nice plant. I do like that they draw, and you know, when they're in peak bloom, they draw an incredible number of butterflies. So I have monarchs and swallowtails that I see, and I've counted, you can get upwards of 20 of them on these plants that are you know, pretty close to, I don't have that many of them. So there's a lot of activity when these guys are in full bloom in the summertime. Okay, let's moving on. I do have to, I don't know if this is noteworthy, but this is this is horseradish. This is a kind of a family heirloom horseradish, and what happens is it does well. I've had this thing probably for, I would guess, for 30 years, and it just kind of grows and it keeps on multiplying. And this is an heirloom, which means it's from my parents' house, also in the Midwest, and they gave me a cutting of it. Right now you can see there's not much left of the leaves. Cabbage looper does a number. There's a cabbage looper on it right now that I can see. Right, they're hard to see because they're green. But there's a cabbage looper that should be right in the middle of the screen there, I think, if I'm taking a look at it right. Anyway, cabbage looper gets in there and just does a number on it, but it'll be okay. It'll come back. It'll be fine. You know, family heirloom plant that it's nice to have. Produces some really potent horseradish, by the way. Okay, let's move on a little bit. I do want to show you one thing because I thought this plant was gone from my garden. It doesn't look like much. It's just leaves. You may be able to see some spots on the leaves, but this is a calla lily that I've had here for many years, and I thought it was done. I thought it was gone, but I was surprised to see it popping through. I don't remember the last time it has even bloomed, but I have it in there, and yeah, it does great. Well, not really. Okay, this is one special plant that I wanted to show you. This is one of my Midwest palm trees right here. And this is just left outside, unprotected. It is the area that I am in, I should say. So I'm back behind the house in this little kind of nestled area. So it is somewhat protected, but this is back in here, is a palm tree. And it gets cold. It gets into the, you know, minus teens, occasionally minus 20s. And what happens when that happens is this thing freezes back to the ground. But you can see that it's kind of growing. And it's pretty big. You know, I'm going to, give me a second, and I'm going to move some leaves out of the way so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, and we're back here. So this is, so you can see it a little bit better, this is my palm tree. And I'm not sure what it is, but it is, I grow it because a colleague, faculty member at one of my old universities, gifted it to me because he wanted some cold tolerant palms that you could grow in the Midwest. Now, this thing is a bush. It's never going to get big, or if it does, it'll get frozen back if it's unprotected when it gets cold. But still, it's a you know, it's an interesting plant, and I like having palm trees before I moved to Florida and have a lot of palm trees in my yard. So this was one of my few palm trees. Now it's one of many that I have, and it is unique because it's growing in the Midwest where it does get very cold. Okay, let me see. Let's go down and I do want to show you a little bit of fall color, because we're starting to get that here. So this is a maple tree here that's just starting to turn, in most of the woods behind my house. There's maples and beech trees, a few oaks, but not too many. And there used to be on the edge of the property here, there used to be hosta all along there, but the deer are just, you know, especially when we're not here, the deer come in and just love eating the hosta leaves. And I should tell you, all of those right there, those are all daylilies that I grew from seed. The best ones I keep in other places. The ones that are not that good, the rejects, I put here, and they bloom and they're okay, but they're not as nice as some of the nice ones. But I do want to show you that it is fall. And so this is again another maple tree back here that is starting to change color and lose leaves. I'm sorry about the backlighting, so you can't see things very well. Anyway, I've got, I think, just one more plant that I want to share with you, and then I got to get everything packed up and ready to go back to Southwest Florida. Okay, this is the last plant here that I wanted to share with you, and there's a little bit of history behind this. Most of my plants have history, but there's a little bit of history behind this. This is a wisteria tree, and wisteria is normally a vine, and you've seen them, I think, grow into trees. They have to be trained just right. The vines grow up something, and then that turns into their trunk. And this one has a little bit of history because I tried doing that with this tree. And so what I did is I put a stake, a wood stake down, and and it was growing great, and it got wrapped up in there. And then in this area of the Midwest, we tend to get high winds, sometimes tornadoes. This thing got incredibly top heavy, and it just broke the internal, the support, even though it was I think it was maybe a 2x2 that I still see in there. So it broke, it fell over, put it back up, put some more wood, got top heavy again, it broke over again, and this thing, it just gets big. So this trip that when I came back here, I took probably about 2/3 of the top stuff off, just because what happens is it gets big up top and it blows over. Now this plant, I've had this probably for, I'm guessing, close to 10 years. It hasn't flowered yet, so that needs to get to a certain level, certain maturity before it'll flower. So it's been pretty disappointing. I should say I had one here previously that did flower. It was too close to the house. I moved it, I killed it, and then this one then is its replacement. And this one, this is not a grafted, I think this was a rooted cutting, and this one has not yet bloomed. I'm hoping one of these days to have it bloom. If it falls over again, I think we're done, because I put so much effort into this and it really hasn't done anything. What I did last time, right, because the wood, what happens again everywhere is the wood that you use to support it, even if it's a 2x4, I haven't tried a 4x4, but even if it's a good sturdy piece of wood, it will rot and crack. So what I have is a metal post that I've attached to the trunk of this tree. I've got it wired in here pretty good, but then in addition to that, the vines that are growing out of the base of this, I've trained to grow up and around that metal post. So the metal post is now disappearing into the trunk of the tree. I don't know if it'll hurt it at all. We'll see, but in the meantime, it seems to be fairly sturdy. I still do have some support, some small support wood, 2x4s and 4x4s, that are kind of holding this thing up. I'm sorry, 2x2s is what I have supporting this, that's holding it up. But I'm hoping one of these days that it will survive and I'll get some blooms out of it. All right, so that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. Last one again in the Midwest before I return to Southwest Florida. If you did enjoy it and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you can click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, that's all I have for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.